The Southern Alberta Council on Public Affairs acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains, and we pay respect to the Blackfoot people, past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. We offer respect to the Métis and all who have lived on this land and made Lethbridge their home.
We have a speaker today, Bill Ginther from the Lethbridge Soup Kitchen. And his title is the Lethbridge Soup Kitchen needed now more than ever?
Well, good afternoon. Well, good afternoon. This is working really well. Wow. Just a second. Okay. On the mini presentations I do every year, upwards of 150 or more, I often speak to people much younger than I am. And so I say, hey, this is great. You make me feel younger. So today, you make me feel like I'm where I should be. I'm probably around the same age as some of you are, and maybe quite a bit older as well. But just a couple of disclaimers before I start. And I think I'll be reminded of how much time I have. My dear wife knows that without a timer, I can just go on and on. And so I want to make sure I respect the time that we have, as well as giving you an opportunity to ask some questions. First of all, I do technology, I think, quite well. I have the cell phone, I've got the laptop, I have the desktop and all of that. But I choose to do my presentations this way. And there's a couple of reasons. It's a little easier to follow where you're at because I just look at my notes. The other thing is I want to say that some of you have a spouse, I'm assuming. Now, my question for you is that, do you ever hear your spouse's voice even though they're nowhere near you? Does it ever happen? It does to me. My wife is telling me right now, hon, stick to your notes or you'll be there all day long. So I'm going to stick to my notes. First of all, thank you I never know, is it Knut or is it Newt, or both? Either one. Anyway, I want to thank you. Oops, I'm going to get this right at the end of the talk. Somewhere in between I'm going to be. Let me know if you can't hear me. But thank you very much for the invitation. I think it's been about 3 years since I was last here, not in this setting, but in another building somewhere over by McDonald's on the north side, I think. And so I don't know how long you've been here, but it looks like a good setting, good food, especially when somebody else pays for it. It's even better. My hope is that, my topic is not necessarily exciting or invigorating, but it is something that is of great importance, I think. And so I want to share with you some things that hopefully will make you think a bit deeper than maybe you did about the issue that I'm going to address. And so mostly it's about the plight of those less fortunate than us. And so I know that could be anybody, because poverty is a subjective issue. You can have a young man stand in front of a full fridge and say, there's nothing to eat in here, Mom, even though there's lots of food. So it's again, the thing that I want isn't there. Secondly, you can have a young woman standing in front of a full closet and say, there's nothing to wear in here. Again, it depends on what we think we should have. And I have this line that is my own, probably nobody else's, and that is that if you want to be satisfied with your life or content, compare yourself with people that have much less than you do. The other way around, if you want to be discontent, compare yourself. I hope I have this right. You can fill in the blanks. If you want to be sort of unhappy all the time, compare yourself with people who you think have more than you do. Better shoes, nicer shirt, nicer sweater, those kinds of things. But the things I want to talk about are much deeper than that surface kind of thing. Has been noted already, my name is Bill Ginther, the Executive Director of the Lethbridge Soup Kitchen, where I'm about to complete my 8th year in my 3rd post-retirement job, so you'll know what that's about. Almost 8 years ago, I was approached by our local board then saying, would I be willing to come and give some direction to the soup kitchen. It was quite a small operation at that point, and because I had spent a lot of time in Eastern Africa doing food insecurity issues, basically observing and trying to assist people that were dying of starvation. Now, people don't die of starvation in Lethbridge. They don't need to. In Canada, you don't need to. There are social service networks or safety nets that keep people from going hungry. Having said that, there are still people that are food insecure. And so on that basis, I said yes for 2 years. And I thought, well, I can extend until 5. Well, now it's 8. And so I'm not sure what the future holds. I often say to young people, grade 11 and 12, don't be too concerned about what you're going to do for a future. I'm 76 and I'm not totally sure yet what I want to do. There's got to be something out there. At this point, this is where I feel I need to be. And I approach my decisions more on what as a believer, I feel that I am placed where I should be if I'm obedient to what he's asking me to do. Now, this is not a discussion about my faith other than that, to say that that's what motivates me to do what I do. And so we just keep doing it for that reason. When I started almost 8 years ago, we had 3 part-time staff, myself included, and we did one light lunch to about 40 people Monday to Saturday, one meal a day. Fast forward to this day, we have 24 staff, all part-time. We never have more than 1 staff on site at any given time due to budget restraints. We do 3 meals a day every day, except Sunday we do a brunch and an evening meal. Lately we've been seeing upwards of 200 people come for meals, and so we're really thankful that we can do that. This is mostly our unhoused population, sometimes called homeless. There's various different ways of looking at it. Our city has a different way of referring to that. I think they call it, I even forget what it's called because I dislike it that much. It's something about it will come to me later. I'm at that age, maybe you are too. I don't always remember what I was going to say, but I will get back to it eventually. We're very fortunate as an organization. We receive a lot of food, mountains of food. Last year we received $1.75 million worth of food. We know that because we weigh every item that comes in. We give it a value that is dictated by CRA. And of that 1.7 million, we gave away 1.4 million. So we are now much bigger outside of the soup kitchen than we are in. Now that sounds kind of odd because we're the soup kitchen. I actually approached our board of directors last Tuesday. We should really change our name because we're way bigger than a soup kitchen. We should be soup kitchen and food distribution or something like that. Because we give excess food, we'll call it, to 30 different agencies in the city, including seniors, including a lot of people that are on a very limited income. We still have way too much food. I was at the office this morning and noticed our freezer is literally overflowing. I have a pretty firm rule that nothing should be on the floor. Well, the floor is completely filled. And so one of the things that I really struggle with is that if you've got your storehouses full and people are hungry, there's a disconnect somewhere. We really need to work at that. I have to tell you, there may be someone here that has worked or volunteers at one of the 2 local food banks. They don't really like us a lot when we give away a lot of food because it interferes with their numbers. And that's one of the things that I struggle with because funding is based on the numbers you serve. If you serve a smaller amount, your funding could go down. And so they don't always like us. At this point in my life, it doesn't bother me. I'd rather serve people than be liked by everybody. I always say that as long as my wife of 55 years still loves me, our kids and 12 grandchildren still think I'm okay, then I'm okay. Other than that, I'm not here to offend anybody, but I also don't need to be liked any more than the average person would be. As you know, the shelter run by the Blood Tribe Department of Health is in the midst of construction of a new shelter. It was to be completed by the end of February. We're now at the end of April almost, and it's not yet completed. I think it's an issue around availability of shower doors or something like that. I want you to know that a shelter, in my view, is a glorified cattle barn. And I say that not in disrespect to what it is, but it's not intended for anything but to lay your head. And remember, there's no pillows, there's no blankets, it's on the floor. on a thin mat in your clothing. So it's not a place you want to go. Part of the reason for that is that you don't want to encourage people to hang any longer than necessary. It's a place out of the wind, out of the rain, out of the snow, and all of those things. So it's necessary, but because they're expanding the shelter, the new one will have space for 200 people. The current one has 111. Now I know some of you are, quote, old enough to remember the movie called Field of Dreams. Anybody remember it? The standard line in that one was, build it and they will come. And you know the story. Well, it's the same here. Build it and they will come. Lethbridge is a destination point for a lot of people that like climates that are a bit warmer, and ours apparently are, not always, but compared to even Calgary and Edmonton, so we have people gravitating to our area. It's not always a positive thing. The other thing is about when you have a soup kitchen, and I stand corrected, but I think we're the only soup kitchen in Western Canada, maybe all of Canada, that does 3 full and complete meals every single day. So that's something that we didn't aspire to do. At our last annual meeting, one of our attendees said to me, it's a shame that you have to celebrate growth when it comes to the work you're doing. It is a shame, and we don't celebrate, but we respond to need. My approach has always been, we need to be proactive, not reactive. So we're being proactive in terms of building onto our structure. We're currently in the midst, or started, construction of a 30 by 60 foot addition to our building. Primary reason is that we need more space in our dining room. We only have an hour. If you're one of those, have any of you been at the soup kitchen as a volunteer? Wonderful, keep doing that. It's really important. We cannot function without volunteers. We're done. We could not do one meal without volunteers. We tried one day because the group got their dates mixed up and didn't show up. So we scrambled to find half a dozen people last minute to do that. But volunteers are our lifeline. And we have about 800 volunteers. And you think that sounds like a lot? It is. But we also need 12 to 14 for every meal 3 times a day. So it's really important for us to have that. So we're trying to be proactive by enlarging our dining space, dining room area, so that we can accommodate more people. Again, we wish we didn't have to, but we know that is the reality. I'm on page 2 of 18, in case you're wondering. No, I don't have 18. I think there's 5. I want to emphasize that I should have maybe saying that. I come to you this afternoon not as an expert at anything. Well, maybe marriage. After 55 years, I think we know what we're doing. I think, most days. But I want to tell you, I come with observed experience, not lived experience. I have an addiction, it's called coffee. I've never tried to quit, so I have no idea if it would be difficult. But I have observed a lot of people who have extreme addictions to the point that if there's no reversal, if there's no assistance, if they don't decide to come clean, they will die. In 2023, there were 121 deaths on the property at the soup kitchen and at the shelter. That's 121 people that died. The ambulances or the EMS staff were there every single day, many, many times a day. I don't think there was a time I could look out the window that there wasn't an ambulance, and of course they come with the fire trucks as well. Our government, our current government, some of you may disagree with some of the decisions they make, but they did make a very, very important decision last November. And that decision was that anyone, including any of you, can go to a pharmacy and pick up a naloxone kit, Narcan kit, and that will help reverse. It does. In 97% of the time, it will reverse an overdose. So what happens is you're getting people, if Newt and I are both addicted, we're not, thankfully, we would travel as a pair. If I overdose, he's right there to help me out. That has saved many, many lives, and will continue to do that. Now, I'm only aware of 1 death in 2024 on our yard or our property or our parking lot. Now, granted, a lot of that space is being used up by the new building, but still, we're not seeing the same. Now, the naysayers would say, well, let them die because they have no value. So I want to say to you, and you know this, but I'm going to repeat something that I will keep repeating. Everyone, every single person on earth has equal value. Whether you're a university professor or Formula One, sorry, don't mean to pick on you, or someone who does the job I do, or any other job you can think of. In my world, same value. There's no difference in the value of that person or that person. And that's one thing we need to learn, that unhoused, homeless people who are highly addicted, likely indigenous, because that's a high percentage of the people that come, they are looked down upon and discriminated against very, very often. We need to move beyond that. And one of the things that's difficult, and I talk to a lot of young people, and I say, here's a couple of things you can do. Number one, if you see someone different than yourself, in particular a homeless person, make eye contact with them. Make eye contact, because the first level of acceptance or acknowledgement is eye contact. You legitimize someone's existence by looking at. If I talk the whole time looking down, I probably should more because I want to stay with my notes, but if I don't look up at you at all, I'm being highly ineffective. I don't know you, you know me, I know some of you, but having said that, make eye contact with those, especially homeless folks. Number two, you have a name. Say your name. Hi, my name is Bill, what's yours? Let me tell you a quick story about this. Happened about 2 years ago in Venice Beach in California. It was in winter time, so there weren't many people. There was a fellow there. He had a little encampment, he had a little tarp, and he had a little sleeping bag, and he was there. So I walked up to him, and my dear wife already knows that I feel because I work with homeless people, I should talk with them, and I do. She said, well, just give me your key, dear, and I'll wait in the car. So I did. So I went up to this fellow, and I said, hello, my name is Bill. I'm from Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada, way out there. This was Los Angeles. And I said, what's your name? Again, the next cue for you. My name is, what's yours? People have a name. We're identified by our names. We're identified when people look at us to acknowledge that you are real. And so he said, my name is Mark. I said, Mark, what brings you here? And Mark said, well, he said, this is Los Angeles. People come here to become what? Movie stars. But it never happened to me. So what happens if you, as a person, a younger person, say you leave your small village, be in Hayes, Alberta, anywhere, and you tell everyone, I'm going to become famous. I'm going to be a movie star. Watch for me in the movies. What if you don't make it? Can you go back home and say to people, okay, here I am, I didn't make it. You end up with egg on your face and embarrassment to admit that I failed. My next question is, what keeps you here? And he said, well, lack of motivation. So often, and thinking there's nothing for me, it's hopeless, nobody's going to help me, so I'll just stay here. Now, Los Angeles on the beach isn't too bad, even in winter. It's not that good here in winter, yet many people stay on their own. So just something to remember, that take the time to talk with people. I say to young people in particular, say hello, offer to buy someone a coffee. Don't give people money, don't, because you do that, in all likelihood, you are supporting their habits. I'm not saying they all are, have bad habits, but we all have some. And if you're highly addicted, a handful of money or any amount is, wow, this gives me one step closer to where I need to be for my next fix, my next hit. And you know that the average hit is about $10. So if your car is broken into and there's a pair of purchase sunglasses or a handful of change, that's a good step towards that next hit. And people that are highly addicted live from one hit to the next. That's life. That's just life. That's all there is. When drugs overtake your mind, nothing else matters. Anyone in front of you becomes an obstacle or a means to an end. So if they see you as having something they need, they will not hesitate to take you out. Literally, that'll happen. You could be killed. I'm not trying to instill fear in your mind, but you could be attacked because of you have something. If their need for the next hit is that extreme. So again, this is not a fear mongering. This is reality. And of course, we have to be careful. You don't approach someone all on your own, especially if you're a woman. You don't. And this is not a men versus women comment. It's just that you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't go on the street and just talk to whoever without having somebody with you. So you always have to be careful. Poverty, I've talked about poverty a little bit. And simply defined, poverty is the inability to provide the basic necessities of life for yourself. Many people are there. The reasons are varied, and most of them have to do with things like addiction, of course, things with poor upbringing, often modeling. And so poverty is sometimes self-inflicted, but I can guarantee that nobody has ever aspired to life in poverty. You've never heard someone say, when I, maybe a simple lifestyle, but no one that I know of has ever said, when I grow up, I'm going to be dirt poor. I'm going to be really, really poor. No one aspires to that. And so the circumstances lead you there. It's not somewhere that you plan to go. So there's so many. Did you know that in Lethbridge, the overall poverty rate is about 13%? It sounds low. I think it's higher than that. This was a statistic from last year. 15.2% of children under the age of 8 are living in a very poor environment and don't often have enough food to eat. That's really sad for me. Also, on the other side of that, seniors, quite a high percentage of seniors have to make a decision to buy food or buy medication. And that's wrong. That's just so wrong. So we provide food to a lot of people so that they do have food that they need. So economic instability often leads to homelessness. Obviously, you can't afford housing. Lack of affordable housing. Now, that is really a buzzword. You hear it again and again, the lack of affordable housing. But if you take that statement and you move that to a person who's highly addicted, and you say, okay, all they need is a home. And I'm going to tell you, no, that's not true. Yes, everyone needs a home. But let me give you an example. His name is Stan. Stan and I knew each other. I used to spend a lot more time at the soup kitchen before I hired an on-site manager. Stan sat right there near my office. Stan had a job. Stan was a carpenter, worked for a local contractor when he wasn't too drunk. His issue was alcohol. And one day he was a grouch. The grouches, you've heard the name Groucho Marx. He would have fit that really well. So I tried to lighten things up for him a little bit. One day I said, Stan, have you ever thought of having your own place? And his eyes lit up. Oh, I would love that. I said, I happen to know of one. It's vacant right now. It's furnished. And you can move in without paying a penny. I'll arrange it. I'll meet with you I'll meet with you the next morning and we'll make other plans with social services. Stan moved in. At 3 in the morning, I get a phone call from LPS saying, are you are Stan's next of kin? I said, I am. Well, he put you down as that because he had no one else. He just died. Now, why did he die? He invited several people into his new place, no idea how to handle anything, and they convinced him to use, and he overdosed, and they didn't know what to do, so he died. So I was, in essence, responsible for his death, because I found a place for him, but I did not have the support network around. So when people say, all you need is housing, be really careful. Housing with proper supports. Wrap around day to day, day in and day out support until they're able to handle it. The average person who is highly addicted has no means to manage a household. None. Zero. And I found that out the hard way. I mean, I knew that it could be tricky, but I had no idea he would invite people over to use that night. I had no idea he would die. And I was responsible for looking after his belongings, which were meager. I did find out who his family members were, but that was too late. So again, housing alone is not the answer. When I moved to addiction, oh my goodness, I could spend a lot. How much time do I have? 5? Oh boy, okay. All right, I'll talk really fast. Addiction. Addiction always starts with a mood-altering substance. The only reason people take anything is to alter their mood. You know about marijuana, which is now apparently legal. Well, it is legal. So you take something because you're down, you're depressed, you're discouraged, you're hopeless. So you take something to lift yourself up a little bit. Well, you know one thing, maybe in your life you don't know what that means. I know if you find something pleasurable, you want more of that. And if that drug worked pretty well, that one's going to work even better. And the slippery slope will begin. And before you know it, you're highly addicted and you have no idea how you got there or how to get out. Getting out is almost not impossible, but extremely difficult without a lot of assistance. And even then, you're never 100% sure. I've sat across from many, many people and looked them in the eye, as I talked about earlier, and said, if you keep up this lifestyle, you will die. And they did. Many, many people I used to know are long gone. So if we can protect people from dying, but at the same time, if we can improve their situation in life, there's hopefully that's something we can do. Well, I could go on and on with it. I'm going to end kind of with a story. And this story is a young lady by the name of Ershi. Ershi, at 8 years old, her mother brought in a string of boyfriends and allowed them access to her at 8 years old. So imagine that. What a terrible start to her life. If she disagreed, if she argued, they forced her to get drunk on the hardest alcohol they had to watch her behavior and then also make her unaware of what the men were doing to her. So that was her starting point. And in order to escape that reality, she started using. And so she used till about age 20. She was in and out of homeless shelters. She was in and out of different relationships. She broke into people's homes. She engaged in identity theft. You could fill in all the blanks of everything she did. She's one of our staff now, and she can't get a job because she has a criminal record. So if you know of anybody, want to hire a young lady who's been clean for 3 years and is looking for work, but the criminal record stands in the way, let me know. Wonderful young lady who comes with me, was going to come today but had other things happening. She's very effective when it comes to talking to kids. She makes it very simple, as I had. Nike has a symbol, just do it. My symbol is don't do it. Just say no. It's hard to do, but if you don't do it, you're going down a path of destruction. Well, I think my time is up. Yeah, let's leave it there. I mean, I could go on and on. There's lots of information that I'd love to share with you, but I do want to leave an opportunity for you to ask some questions. I know you have them. Again, I'm not the expert. I sometimes joke that if I don't know the answer, I'll make something up, but that's not totally true. I do want to be honest with what I know, but again, I only know what I've seen. I have not experienced that. So I think I'll stop there and open it up to any one of you that have a question or two. And remember, there's no silly question. If there's a silly question, I can come up with a silly answer. But no, I'm just saying that ask a question. If it's important to you, it's important to me. Thank you.
LSCO kindly provides our venue here for free, and appreciate their patronizing their lunch counter. And we already have our speaker complimented. We'll have questions and answers, and please line up along here. No long-winded discourse or more than too many questions at once. You can recycle. So please ask your question, head back to your seat, and give our speaker opportunity to answer. Thank you.
So my name is Mark L. I'm just wondering, is there any other association in the city that provides free meals? And the other question is, I didn't quite understand the problem between the food banks and the soup kitchen. Wouldn't you be able to give your excess foods to the food bank?
Yes. Currently, we are the only organization in the city, and we're not claiming exclusive rights because it's good for anyone to do that. We're the only ones that provide hot, nutritious meals every day. There's a few people like the Sage clan will go out and make sandwiches and things like that and hand them out, which is great. The only problem is they often hand them out at 5 o'clock on our parking lot before we have our full meal at 6. So I'm thinking, let's be more efficient with that one. So we are the only ones that do that right now. I think it's important for people to stay in their lane. And one of the things that we have tried to do, we don't distribute clothing, except that in wintertime, if we see someone with frozen fingers, we will give them gloves with pleasure. And think or somebody that has no shoes, or we have a pair or two, we'll give them to them. So we are not trying to claim any exclusive rights. We just know what we're doing. We've done this enough times. We do about 18,000 meals a month, 168,000 meals a year. So that should give us a little bit of authority in knowing how to do this. And we do it without any government funding, zero, not one penny, and we choose that. And so, second part of your question is with the food bank. We have a good relationship with the food. It didn't sound that way, but we do. We have a food share program. I think this interfaith food bank truck is at our door every single afternoon, or morning, pardon me. We share a lot of bread, we share a lot of things. They share with us. So we do things like that. And the reason I said that, I know it can be controversial, if you start providing, this is us not staying in our lane, right? By us giving food to families, we're not in our lane. It's all about silos. Everybody has their own little area, and I think it's important to respect the others. But when I see things where we have a mountain of food and people are getting a small hamper once a month, then I say it behooves us to help. And if that doesn't make someone happy, that's okay. I'd rather make those people that are hungry happy than those that are offering a service. The other thing that gets me is that very quickly people take, for example, Easter weekend, food banks were closed Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Christmas time is 2.5 weeks. That's my pet peeve. They'll say, well, we need a day off. 365, every single day, there's no exception. So it's just a bit of a comparison, our approach versus theirs. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
I was just wondering if there's any progress, and maybe this isn't an area of your expertise, but do you know how much progress the city of Lethbridge is making in creating affordable housing? And the other question that I have is there anything happening about creating addictions centers to actually help more people who have addictions?
Thank you for the question. Just read that back a little bit. Is the city doing enough, maybe is the question, to deal with lack of housing? The answer is no. Here's one of the things that happens. Bureaucracy is a slow-moving machine. Almost just under 8 years ago, I attended a news conference. I attended 2 more after that, where the provincial government announced I hope I get these numbers right, I think $40 million for a 40-bed apartment unit, which is now under construction, by the way. It took them almost 7 years to get started, even though the need was there. They got started. If you drive down Stafford and look to your left across from Lakeview Bakery, it's under construction now. This is a full wraparound support housing unit. It will be mostly for Indigenous folks, but also it'll have a pharmacy inside, plus other needed services. Now, it has gone down to 30 rooms, because if you look at the dollars, say there were 40 million back in, well, 8 years ago, those same dollars are not worth the same amount they were now. So they lost 10 beds by being slow. And now there's been a couple of elections in between, I think, or at least one. So I mean, those things come into play. In terms of assistance for addicted folks, some form of treatment, the Blunt Tribe Department of Health has a stabilization unit which we helped plan, and it was built for 16 people. These are people that have chosen to become clean, and they go through a 6-week program where they are supposed to be ready to go into treatment. Well, what happens if you go through that plan, that program, and there's no place to go? You go back on the street, and it's almost guaranteed you're going to be back in the same situation you were before. So lack of treatment facilities is a huge issue. I think it's, I should know the names, I'm not involved with them, but I know there's Fresh Start is one of them, has added to their building or built a new one, but they're full with a long waiting list. So I don't think we'll ever be able to keep up with the demand. We need to focus on the other end, which is the supply of drugs. And I know that our local, I know that LPS is doing their best to nab the dealers, those who provide the product. The problem is that Lethbridge, we don't have a federal drug court. So if I'm arrested for dealing, I'm back out on the street within an hour or 2. And then waiting for the federal drug court, which doesn't exist. So what's going to happen? It is a revolving door. And the police get very discouraged with lack of effort, that there's nothing happening. So I hope that answers it again. Is there somebody else? Yeah.
Please state your name when you're giving the question.
Knut Peterson is my name. Thanks very much, Bill, for your presentation, down-to-earth talk. My question to you relates to how's your relationship with the shelter, especially since 2 years ago, I think the Kainai blood tribe took over the running of the shelter, and also your relationship with Streets Alive. Could you delve into that a little bit?
Thanks for the question. The Blood Tribe Department of Health has their own way of doing things. A lot of time it's from an indigenous approach, which is fine. It's their prerogative completely. Having said that, I'm finding that they're doing a really good job. They are also in a good position that because they're indigenous, they can hold their hand out and normally they get what they need. The building they're currently operating or building or constructing the cost is $5.4 million. 1.5 of that is the property, which was given to them by the city. That's your tax dollars being put to use. It's not Blood Tribe money. One of the things that I see is that they focus very much on their own people, which is great, because a high percentage of people staying there are their own people. The problem with lack of experience in running a facility is you run into all kinds of issues. And those issues are a lot of jealousy between staff, a lot of staff turnover, very few Caucasian individuals work there because it's a little bit difficult. So that's the negative side. But the positive side, I think they are really doing the best they can, and I think that it will continue to improve over time. And so we're happy to have them. We provided meals for their stabilization center when they were operating. They chose to close it for a while their building's under construction. Not sure why, but that happened. So we provide them with meals. Even now, every meal, we send 6 extra meals over to the soup kitchen for those who can't make it. The other thing that people often ask is that what happens if somebody arrives at the door and they're not fit to be in our building? That happens. We make sure that we send a meal over to the shelter for them so that no one is sent away without food. Streets Alive, Ken Kissick and I have known each other for many, many years. It took quite a while for him to get used to the idea, this new kid on the block that is doing something that they have been doing. Not the food provision, although they did sandwiches out the back door, so to speak, so you know how I felt about that. They did try. When we expanded to the 3rd meal, we did give them an opportunity. It didn't work. They don't have the network of people that we do. And so they do really good in a lot of areas. They are moving across the street from us in the old El Dorado building. We've had conversations about how we can work together. We want to complement each other. We're not in opposition. We're not fighting for territory. We're serving the same people.
Hello, Bill. My name is Graham Greenlee. As you know, I volunteer at the Soup Kitchen. A few years ago, I attended a talk by a lady. I can't remember where she was from. I think she was from Lethbridge Family Services, maybe. But anyway, she said, in order to show respect for the people we are serving and to maybe help raise their self-esteem a little bit, we should eat with them, not just serve them. Of course, on the days that we work, we always eat before the clients come in, as you know. So when we are working to serve the people, how can we eat with them?
One of the things I smile at and I make reference to when I see people eating before they're serving, it tells me they don't totally trust they trust their food totally. They're going to eat it first, make sure that it's okay. The other side of that is that if they wait till our guests have eaten, if they all fall over, then they'd be better off not to eat. So we do appreciate that. It's very difficult. I encourage anyone, and that means absolutely anyone, come and eat with our guests. Come and sit down. We won't charge you. You don't qualify. You walk in the door, we'll give you a meal. And if you want to come and sit with people, I would welcome that. Here's one thing that I will say at some risk. I have, in my almost 8 years, I've invited many elders. I've invited a lot of the indigenous leadership to come and join us. Just come be there with them. How many do you think have come? 0, none. That to me is a major issue. That if you don't support your own people, how would you expect other people to support them? You know, that's one of the things that I hope that I could change, but I'm not so sure I ever will.
Thanks for your presentation. Bev Trainer. I'm going to just up front say, if you look at all the services that are in Lethbridge for people that we're talking about, I'd like to look at it from the perspective of a wheel with a variety of spokes. My question to you is, when you've got all these various factions, to me, it presents a problem with jointly getting together to communicate and solve a multitude of different problems. And I'm wondering if you see this in the work that you do. Thank you.
I referred earlier to silos. So what I mean by that is everybody has their own little area. This is my area, leave that one alone. And so that's one of the things that happens very easily unless you guard against it. The other thing about that is that different agencies receive funding for different things. And so, for example, if you receive funding to provide sandwiches for somebody, that did happen a few years ago. But you don't have any place to do that. My answer would be bring them to us and we'll include them with a meal. But their answer is that we need to account for how we spent that money, so therefore we're going to hand them out right next to you, even though there would be no need for that. So that's one of the things that working together becomes extremely difficult funding-wise. So we never worry about that because we don't have funding from specific sources. We get funding from the general public, from people, also churches, and I look for funds all the time. If you have a bunch, well, you were already gathering money for something else. So if you have a whole whack, just leave it here. I'll look after you, you'll be receiving. So I think we all kind of develop our own little niche where this is our area. And I said earlier, I think we're experts at food. We are. But if somebody else moves into that territory and tries to take over, we kind of get our hackles up a little bit. Why don't you focus on what you do? So I think the big thing is that, I used this term earlier, we need to learn to stay in our lane, but at the same time we need to complement each other. So the Blood Tribe Department of Health has a shelter. That's where many people stay. Not all, many people stay there. These are the very people that we provide food for. So we're assisting them. They have people that are hungry. We have no place for them to stay. So that's that sort of a shared thing. One of the bigger issues is that our city, and I know how it operates. I ran for council last term and got, according to my wife, got way too close to being elected. One of the things is that some of the decisions that are made don't really add up. For example, they have an encampment strategy. It costs you $500,000 a year. And what it is, every 72 hours they come into our neighborhood, they dismantle everything that has been erected since they last were there. And what they can't take with them, they throw in, a garbage truck follows, and everything is thrown into the garbage truck. And 72 hours they do it again. I have watched last, what is today, Thursday? I've lost track of my days. Thursday. Yesterday, around 1:15, the city, their encampment team, with very fancy vehicles, they've got, logos, they have, their clothing that identifies them, and they were there. At 1:15, they left our street. If you want to see where I'm talking about, drive down the street in the direction of our building. 1:15, I went back at about 3:30. Most of them were back. Tents set up again. All they do is pack up their tents, move around the corner. And literally, when they're driving away, they're back there again because they choose to stay outside. And I say simply, why don't we come up with a proper strategy? Why don't we have a legalized encampment where you register to be there? You have services coming through, like we do buildings. But people say to me, including our mayor, who I do appreciate a lot, but he'll say to me, Bill, your solutions are too simple. If they would work, why don't we just send people away? Why don't we help them somehow? Remember, people have to want to help themselves. And many people stay outside because they can't bring all their belongings into a shelter. They can't use in a shelter. If you've got a cart full of things that is your worldly possessions, you can't bring them with you. What do? Stay outside. What if you can't use inside? If you stay outside. So a lot of people stay outside for that reason. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. I'm Bev Mundell Atherstone, and I really appreciate that you came here to speak to us. And I really like the idea of that you've explained about the coordinating with the food bank and with Streets Alive, and of course with the shelter. Thank you very much for doing that. And we're very fortunate today because we have our mayor here with us in the back, and we have our NDP MLA, Rob Miyashiro, here. So we have two levels of government listening to you, coming specifically to hear what you have to say. So I would like to know, and you sort of made a segue for this, talking about the encampments. What is your opinion of Pierre Poilievre's plan to dismantle encampments and incarcerate the addicted for treatment? And similarly, Daniel Smith's Bill 53, the Compassionate Intervention Act, so-called, whereby people can be forced into care for addiction. What is your experience with this? Thank you.
In my opinion, you can't force anyone to do anything. You can arrest people and you can place them in, different incarceration models and try to reform them. But my response to that is that the only one that changes you is you. To have a forced, it's like years ago, this is well before my time, but they used to do something called, was it lobotomy, where if somebody had a lot of mental health issues, they would actually remove a portion of their brain. I think that went on till probably the 60s, something like that. How effective would that have been? So to force anyone to go into treatment, the success rate in my view would be minimal at best. The other part of your question is, should you dismantle and arrest people? Was that what it was? Encampments?
Yes, the Pierre Poilievre's plan. Yes.
Way too simple. I remember a person a number of years ago said to me that arrest them all, just arrest them all. And my response was, don't you want to know why they are where they are? What about trying to tackle some of the underlying issues that brought them there? What about their upbringing? What about their modeling they had? What about a whole bunch of a list of things? Don't we address those first before we say arrest them and throw them in jail or put them into forced treatment? I think a couple of ideas that are not thought out at all, in my view. I think you need to understand why people are where they are. We need to support them to the best of our ability. And number one, recognize them as people and treat them that way.
I'm stepping in front of another very compassionate lady. Bill, could you explain to us how you're able to get so many volunteers to, because without the volunteers you wouldn't be operating. How are you able to find all these great people to come and volunteer on a steady basis?
Volunteerism, as many of you will know, is a pretty simple thing. I don't know what they are. There's a number of R's, but one of them is recruitment. So you let people know what your need is and do it in such a way that it makes sense to them. We have a very active social media presence. I think we have 8,500 followers on our Facebook page now. People see that and they're encouraged by other people doing that. Our volunteers enjoy themselves and the expressions on their face. I'm the one that looks after our social media. I don't only post pictures of people that are smiling. People are smiling when they come. And so it's about recruitment. It is about recognition, thanking people for who they are. And the next R, there's two more. I remember one is retention. You retain people by acknowledging them and appreciating them. The other thing about, I have volunteered at the food bank, and please don't read my comments about the food bank as being negative. They do great work. It's just I don't always agree. And they may not agree with me either, that's okay. But one of the things that I find that having volunteered at both of them, mostly you'll be filling a hamper. You got a list on the wall tells you for a family of 5, this is what you do. So I would find myself thinking about, I wonder who that family is. I wonder what they're about. The difference between volunteering there, and please don't hesitate to go there, they need you. But for us, you see the people you serve. You prepare the meal, you spend an hour, hour and a half preparing the meal, and there's something about preparing a meal, and the mothers, more so than fathers, would know that. When you prepare a meal for someone, it's from your heart. It is. And secondly, then you see the very people you're serving. You look them in the eye. They're right in front of you. You don't have to wonder, who are they? And that's one of the reasons that we don't have any difficulty. We engage a lot of young people. Our noon hour is mostly reserved for school groups. We are booked through till the end of 2026 in terms of spots at lunchtime. You might find one, but school groups are coming. And I also like to speak to them before they come, so we give them some idea how to interact, some of the clues I've given you. And so I think it's a number of things, but mostly it's you're looking at the people you're serving, and I think that has a real value for your heart to see that you're serving somebody and that you're making a difference.
Bev Trainer. I'm going to come from a slightly different place and a viewpoint in regards to people who I have a great deal of caring about in regards to those who are addicted, those who are suffering the plight of poverty. And my question to you surrounds, my belief is that some of these people are in such a dire situation that I question if they have the capacity at times to be able to make the decision to get the help that they need. And with those people, is it not more compassionate to help them get the help that they themselves can't make the decision to make? I think it's just another way of looking at it, not suggesting that it's, that there aren't two viewpoints on it, but what we're doing at times with certain people, I feel hasn't worked very well for their benefit and for the general public's benefit. So that's my question to you. And I came up here to just have those 2 points of view being thought about.
I agree completely. There are various different ways of handling any service situation. I come at it from the point of saying that forcing people to do anything doesn't work. However, it's not to say I've met many families who have a highly addicted son or daughter. They have taken and done everything in their power, and they have forcibly brought them into treatment facilities. There are times it has worked, most often not. And also at a great expense to the family, because those kind of services are not offered at no charge. And so you're going to find immediately it goes back to who's paying for what. And dollars and cents make a huge difference. That's why I feel fortunate that other than a grant from the city, and Mayor Reagan is here listening to me, we do get a grant from the city once a year, which I'm thankful for. When I say no government funding, I mean provincial and federal, right? But having said that, the city does support us, and we're thankful for that. But I don't think, in my view, it's a lack of compassion by thinking that we shouldn't force people. I think we look at the record, the history, and how it has not worked, unless we have a new approach completely. But anytime you hear a politician in particular use a blanket statement that this is what we're going to do, I ask the question, do you know these people? Do you know the person you're talking about? And for me, I've told you already, from my perspective, get to know people. Who are they? Know their name. Listen to their lives. What happened to them? And I said earlier, no one aspires to poverty. No one aspires to a life of addiction. I know that. They do not want, now, they're caught there. But how do you get them out? I don't know. It's got to be on their own initiative, because force anybody, you heard the old line, you can lead a horse to water, can't make it drink. The other side of that is, the other end, so to speak, you can lead a horse to drink, but you can't make it water. So I think we have to be careful that we cannot keep doing the same thing and expect different results. You know the definition of insanity, right? Do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, and they won't happen. I think conversation is vital. I think we need to talk more about what we can do as a community. All of us can do something. And there's simple things. When I talk to little kids, I'll give you one quick example. I spoke to ages 3 and 4 kids in a day home a few years ago. And I said to these little kids who happily hopped on your lap, which was great, because our youngest is now 10, so he doesn't do that anymore. But I said to them, you know, you can do something. Tell your mom and dad, always have bottled water, cold water in your car. When you go out and you see somebody walking, even if I'm out there walking in plus 35, which I can't imagine right now, but when it comes, hand out water to them. And this, 2 weeks later, I had a phone call from a mother who said to me, my little boy, age 4, will not let us leave the house without bottled water. Now we've taught something. Do the same with gloves. I can't remember the last time I kept a pair of gloves longer than a few weeks. Because people will use in midwinter, and if you're trying to use your fingers to operate your various different, for example, bubbles or whatever, right? You will drop your gloves. By the time you know you had gloves, you don't know you had gloves. And you see a lot of amputations. Many people come with amputated fingers and toes. You can help with that. Hand out your gloves. Hand out water. There's things you can do.
Couple of things. So, Carol Sakia, sorry. The encampment strategy. I guess as a retired person and from social services, I assumed what you see going on around the corner of your building was going on, but of course I've lost touch with all that now. So I was glad to hear it's as useful as a strategy as I suspected.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, well, yeah, anyway. But I really wanted to know about, there must be like a National Association of Food Banks or a Provincial Association of Food Banks that you must get together and come up with better ideas of how to advocate for this clientele to the larger government sources. And I want to know, where's all this food coming from? Like stores, people. What about food safety? Best before dates, I've heard that you guys don't worry about that too much, and maybe nor do most of us, but I just want to hear some about where's all this tons of food coming from?
I know I stir the pot a little bit, but at my age I'm not afraid to do that. And that is to say that the current encampment strategy makes no sense to me. To me, it only keeps things a little under control for the public eye. You can see that, but people still need a place to go, and so it's just a revolving door with a large cost. And so I would totally agree with that, doing that. Where does food come from? Well, here's something. I am one who does not like to pay other people for the right to shop. This is not a Costco card, but if it was, some of you have a Costco card. You have to pay in order to shop there. I really don't like that at all, but I have one anyway. But I've learned to I pay it willingly, because in 1 month, the month of, I'm gonna say November, I think, Costco gave us $45,000 worth of food. Last year, of the $1.7 million worth of food from many sources, most grocery stores, bakeries, etc., Costco gave us $345,000 worth of food. So they looked at after about a quarter of what we received. Best before dates, I think they're so arbitrary. I just have a really hard time when you're hungry, say, oh, this quote expired yesterday, so therefore I have to throw it out. And I'm thinking we waste so much food by having these mandatory best before dates that I think are thought out in the middle of nowhere without any real thought to it at all. So we do receive some things that are quote best before, but a sealed tin of something, because it says that it was best before last month, are you one that's going to tell me that that's no longer usable? If you tell me that, I'll say that's not true. We will use it. We can open it first and see. We're not overly concerned. We're not going to purposely give anybody something that's not good. We'll never do that because we open it first and we try it. So we never, I'm not aware of one, actually not true. I remember years ago I helped in the kitchen. Our staff knows that I don't belong there, but I did, and I was putting something on the grill. I think it was eggs, and I cracked an egg and it was like black, and the smell was just horrendous. Now, had I given that egg away, I would have felt really bad, but we just cleaned everything up and moved forward, right? It happens. How do I know? You can't see that. So we are not that particular about the best before dates, and we get food from many, many different agencies. One of the things that our staff smile about, or sometimes they're not smiling, I don't say no to anything. I will say yes to anything that comes, because if we can't use it, somebody else can.
Well, I want to thank you very much. Our next speaker next week on May 1st is Chandra Singh. What's new for sugar beet growers in terms of storage and product use? I just had a comment for Bill, and we also always get you to give us a take-home message. As a practicing physician, I saw about 25, 30 years ago, the closure of the Michener Center meant there was a whole bunch of people on the street that weren't there before, and I think that was sort of an avalanche for us.
I think it's very true. It's very easy to criticize other people, and especially governments, and we all like to do that. They become our whipping boys in so many ways. But having said that, there were some decisions made back in the 80s where they closed down the institutions. There were many of them, and these are people with high degree of mental illness, to the point where they had to be medicated even to be able to handle them. A lot of these people were just turned out on the streets. I also want to know that a high percentage of our guests deal with undiagnosed and untreated mental illness. We see it a lot, and I think that kind of lifestyle makes sense that they would. So what's the take home for today? Show more compassion. You probably already do, but be compassionate to people around you. Just because they're different than you, just because they act and respond to things differently, they have the same value. And so maybe take another look at your own response to people. What is that like? Am I being welcoming and open to people that have needs around me? And step up and do your part, whatever that may be. It may be gathering socks, it may be gathering gloves, it may be water bottles. All things that we could use. Is not our official mandate, but we'll do it because it's necessary.